concludes all operations of the emergency alert system. All stations may now resume regular programming.
For expanding its sphere of influence on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy.
Alright, so we had some events unfold on Monday and Tuesday, September 26th and 27th. That left me with some lingering questions. So let's lay out a brief timeline of events. First, Joe Biden says this back on February 7th.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Okay, so if Russia advances, the Biden administration said that they will take out Nord Stream. Well, in the last video we talked about the recent mobilization of troops and changes to Russia's war machine. So Russia announces a new military offensive and shakeup, and then right after that, we got this. Seismologists in Denmark and Sweden on Monday recorded powerful blasts in the areas of the Nord Stream pipeline. They went on to say that there is no doubt that these were explosions. Denmark assesses that the Nord Stream gas leaks were caused by a quote-unquote deliberate act and could not have been the result of accidents. And then the Danish military actually released footage of a mysterious frothing disturbance in the Baltic Sea. This ended up being the gas leaks. The surface area of the largest gas leak showed a disturbance of well over 1 kilometer in diameter. And you know, it does feel like someone is trying to deliberately deny Europe energy in order to create some sort of artificial scarcity. However, the blame game begins. Ukraine said that it was Russia, which we'll get to in a second. Naturally, the Kremlin says that it could be someone else, implying that it wasn't them. And I quote, "Sabotage cannot be ruled out. Damage to Nord Stream pipelines is unprecedented." And then from there, German federal authorities didn't give a theory, but they did say, and I quote, "Our imagination no longer yields a scenario that this is not a targeted attack." They further stated, such a suspected attack has to be carried out with special forces, for example, Navy divers or a submarine. As it turns out, the US was in fact performing military drills in the Baltic Sea recently, and they were actually practicing detonations. The chairman of the European Union US delegation believes that it was the US government who committed the act of sabotage. And once again, as it turns out, the CIA warned the German government of potential attacks on the Baltic Sea pipelines. However, who is responsible? So a quote from James Melville: "Why would Putin sabotage Nord Stream? It makes no strategic sense for him to do so. In the long term, this significantly damages the Russian export economy, and it also takes out his economic leverage within the conflict." Which is true. The pipelines could have been a strategic negotiating piece, and it gave them leverage over the rest of Europe. Another aspect to support the claim that it was not Russia is, well, that if it was in fact Russia, why wouldn't they hit the Norway EU pipeline? That's right next to the Nord Stream pipeline. And the fact that the Norway European Union pipeline was just opened this week.
So once again, did the Biden administration really do this? It's hard to believe. Given that it's an atrocity, it's effectively an act of terrorism, we don't want to make that accusation. But we should tell you that, maybe not coincidentally, today a brand new pipeline was unveiled, a pipeline that carries non-Russian natural gas in roughly the same area as Nord Streams 1 and 2. This is called the Baltic Pipe. It was inaugurated in Poland. It will carry natural gas from Norway through Denmark to Poland and other countries nearby. And it's likely to do very well since now it has less competition. Making sense?
Curious indeed. So yes, a European Parliament member has thanked the USA for blowing up a pipeline that delivers gas to keep millions and millions of people in Europe warm throughout the winter. However, ultimately, this is multifaceted. They could use this sabotage as a way to attack Putin, push their green agenda, cripple Europe and make them more dependent on us, and it can be used to prolong the war, or really escalate it into a full-on world war. If it's confirmed, well, really, I don't know if that even matters. Russia is going to act like the US did this regardless. This is an act of war. Things just escalated. Anyway, what is the motivation, and how long have they been planning this? Okay, so they have been preparing people for a cold and bleak winter for some time now. So does that mean that they have been planning this for a while? Maybe. Really, more than likely, yes. I mean, we constantly hear from European officials and really US politicians too. And they say, quote unquote, we'll do whatever it takes and for as long as it takes. So really, any sort of escalation is on the table, including destroying people's lives if it fits in with their scheme. Collateral damage for the greater good. This is a plan. I hate to admit it, but I gotta say, their planning seems to be impeccable and their timing is dead on. What are the odds that everything is falling into place so damn well? They have been working on this since at least 1972 or 1973, and their goal, as stated back then, was the year 2030. Now, we have a complete collapse of various aspects of society, perfectly in time with their target dates. They continuously say that they are going to end fossil fuels, and suddenly, an energy crisis is manufactured. They are destroying food supplies and telling farmers to grow less, while the WHO is warning of global food shortages. Because, that makes sense. They are coming out with CBDCs, perfectly in time with the collapse of global currency value. We have an update on that in a later segment, but now the euro, the pound, and the dollar are reaching parity. The perfect scenario for a global digital currency. On top of that, the timing of the technological improvements coincidentally worked out perfectly as well. Back in the 1970s, it would have been very, very hard to predict the impact of the internet, the power of artificial intelligence, facial recognition technology, biotech, etc. I mean, at that time, DARPA was not even working on developing the internet yet, but somehow it all came together. The technological advancements and the emergence of the surveillance state, which ties directly into their carbon-based economy, rose to prominence at the exact time that they needed it. As we all know, the surveillance state and the new carbon-based economy are inextricably linked. This can be exemplified by stuff like this, and I quote, "The Gates Foundation has committed over $1.27 billion to worldwide digital identity projects and public infrastructure to ensure progress towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Specifically, Sustainable Development Goal 16.9 sets a global goal of universal legal digital identity for every single person by 2030. So $1.27 billion to merge digital ID and public infrastructure to ensure they meet their goals. So what it sounds like to me is that your digital ID will be linked to various public services, and if you aren't a good little slave, then you can't access certain luxuries, like, going out in public without being treated like a pariah."
And several central banks apparently, as I heard from my sources, have already fully developed the final stage of CBDC. I mean, it comes in stages, initially likely through your mobile phone, but that's only an intermediate step. And the final stage is, it's small, and it's the size of a grain of rice. Now, why is that?
And that grain of rice is your entire wallet, or?
Yes, it's your digital ID, your wallet, can be your passport, your key. What we found with our debit cards or credit cards is they've already now moved to the system, RFID chips technology where you just wave the thing, contactless.
Yes.
That is sort of the conditioning us in this direction, that in the future you'll just wave your hand because you've got the microchip implant under your skin. Each step, there's a rational reason, it's easier just to wave this, isn't it? It's much faster because we always have to wait in the queues as everyone types in their numbers and all that. The next rationalization would be, but you can lose your card, somebody can steal your card, and then you're just waving, that's kind of risky. Wouldn't it be nice if you couldn't lose it and nobody could steal it? It's clear that that's it is almost a step too far for a lot of people, because it is a violation of human dignity to actually inject something like that under the skin. So that's where you need some more persuasion.
Yeah.
This concept of universal basic income has been around for around a century, where everyone should get some kind of citizens, payment. Since 2015, they've all come out. I mean, all the big billionaires and World Economic Forum have come out, this is a good idea. universal basic income. Well, why suddenly now? Because now we have the technology for the microchip implant. And so in 2017, Bill Gates came out and said that universal basic income is a good idea, but it's too early to introduce it. Now, what was still missing? So we had the technology for the microchip implant, but what was missing was the digital ID hadn't been introduced.
Anyway, it's just amazing to me how they timed everything for 2030, and the fact that they planned it so long ago. As we know, as we hit the year 2020, things began to rapidly accelerate. Of course, through the use of the global medical predicament. I mean, if you think about it, it really set in motion everything, and they kept it going to perpetuate various different crisis events. So we had the medical predicament that set in motion the lockdowns, which also normalized the process of lockdowns, which will be soon transitioned to be climate lockdowns. It helped create the biomedical surveillance state and got people used to the idea of social credit scores. The medical predicament started the supply chain crisis, the energy crisis, and the food shortages, possibly famine. And it kind of helped with their socialized medicine pitch. It normalized transhumanism and genetic alterations, and it eroded our rights. The medical predicament helped normalize censored speech. It helped establish the two-tiered society, and it's conditioned average citizens to rat out their neighbors to the state. It also normalized the merging of big tech and big pharma into federal government functions. The medical predicament also set in motion the economic collapse and laid the foundation for a switch to central bank digital currency. And then we also, quote-unquote, coincidentally, got the war in Ukraine, which also helps to perpetuate the energy crisis. It gives them a reason for a green transition, and it gives them the foundation to pitch it as inevitable and necessary. Now the war in Ukraine also sets in motion the realignment of global superpower status, which was also predicted within the famous "You'll Own Nothing and Be Happy" commercial. It's just wild. It is crazy how everything began to collapse right when they have been planning for a collapse. And it doesn't seem to me as if they're just, really good at predictions. As we know, their predictions are notoriously shit. Anyway, it's no surprise to you by now that I believe this is all manufactured. The fact remains that the energy crisis actually helps with the implementation of their quote-unquote energy transition, a fact that we can't overlook. Really, all of this kind of helps with their narrative. They can either cripple Europe through things like the destruction of this pipeline. They have also been warning of a bleak winter with the need of warm banks to keep people warm. And I don't know, I can see it getting so bad, maybe over the next couple of years, that eventually people will start begging for the carbon tokens and the social surveillance. That people will start begging to allow the government to control their energy consumption. Accepting the entire system of total control, just because they are going to be offered their quote-unquote old way of life back. Albeit under one condition, that they must comply with the quote-unquote new normal. Or hell, they could use this event to further say that these pipelines are unreliable and environmentally dangerous, furthering the need for their quote-unquote green transition. However, really, I think they are creating the energy crisis as a method of enacting change. The war really does help with that, as sick as that is. So we are left with various questions, but one of them is, could the energy crisis event act as the catalyst for the financial reset? Well, we have talked about the cyber pandemic simulation a few times, but the energy crisis may be the thing that kicks things off, as London is beginning to prepare people for bank blackouts. Yes, Europe is about to learn the hard way that energy availability is absolutely necessary for a functioning economy and society. Even short-term outages can wreak havoc, like, bank shutting down. So, could the energy crisis be the first domino in the real reset of the system? Now, I'm not so sure, but it does seem plausible, so let me know what you think. Now, you may ask, do we have any more clues indicating that this is, in fact, all a part of a bigger plan? Why, yes, we do. Recently, a story came out indicating that Boris Johnson stopped peace negotiations from happening between Russia and Ukraine. And then you have press ops like this, the European Union president saying that they will support Ukraine for as long as it takes. They aren't trying to do anything but prolong the crisis, sacrificing the people of Ukraine, and really, sacrificing the average Russian citizen too, sacrificing them on the altar of quote-unquote progress. All of it is to shift the economic systems of the world. With what promise? What is Ukraine being offered for their sacrifice? Well, okay. So, the damn near $100 billion that the US government has given to Ukraine for the war effort is not a gift. They are loans. Loans that will in fact have to be paid off eventually. not only helping prop up the global standing of the US dollar, for now, I'm not really sure what's going to happen when they switch to digital currency, but the other aspect is that the World Economic Forum, the United States, well, their plan is to transform Ukraine into a satellite nation devoted to their technocratic system. Have you watched the advertisement Ukraine 2030? Well, here it is.
Let's look 8 years ahead. 2030. The history of the new Ukraine is studied all over the globe. Why? Because Ukraine became the most digital and convenient country in the world. Scripts have replaced bureaucrats. 500,000 former public servants are successfully integrated in the new economy. No more red tape, but paperless. No more banknotes, but cashless. Yes, we became the first country to abandon paper money. Ukraine now has the best tax system for the IT industry and the most affordable e-residency. Thanks to Ukrainian engineers and programmers, the R&D centers of the world's top technology companies operate successfully, and Ukraine ranks first in the world by the number of startups per capita. Ukrainian courts are guided by artificial intelligence, and all notarial acts take place online. Ukrainian customs is fully automatic and the fastest in the world. Customs clearance and car registration can now be done in 3 clicks from your smartphone. Because of war and internal migration, we have built the most flexible and modern digital education. Brave military and civilians get quality treatment with modern remote monitoring and e-health systems. Ukraine also has the most effective cyber defense in the world. After the horrors of 2022, Ukraine focused on security systems. Now every production facility has its air defense system, and the sleep of Ukrainians is protected by an ultra-modern iron dome. The Ukrainian government is digital, more like an IT company in terms of the efficiency of implementing decisions, and one can register a land plot, start construction, open a business or get a license, and register a car or real estate from a smartphone, automatically, in 1 click. Ukraine is the freest and digital. This is all because international partners and the world's leading technology companies supported the Digital for Freedom initiative and united to help Ukraine recover through digitalization, building a new Ukraine together, free and the fastest, brave and digital.
Now, it's not just the Ukrainian citizens and the average Russian citizen being used as cannon fodder for this global power struggle. In turn, the citizens of all of Europe will be cast aside to fulfill their vision. Really, they just expect every single person to get in line eventually. As we have talked about before, as H.G. Wells said, countless people will die protesting the New World Order. But we have to bear in mind a generation or two of malcontents. They know that a few generations will fight against it, but eventually, the newer generations will only know the New World Order. It will just be normal for them. The establishment just has to get through a couple decades of pushback. They do not care that they are subjugating humanity. It is their goal. Because, as we know, politicians view the global establishment and their ideology is paramount, and they believe that it's more important than the well-being of their constituents. I don't think people really understand how bad the energy crisis is going to get in Europe, possibly the entire world. However, I do have a distinct feeling that a lot of these quote-unquote young environmentalists are going to suddenly realize how foolish they were to be demanding that fossil fuels be ended overnight. And look, I don't want anyone to freeze this winter. I don't want anyone to suffer through food shortages, or have to deal with various collapses of critical infrastructure, all because of the reckless policies of the global establishment. The real aspect that is maddening is the fact that it's all avoidable. They are going to end up killing millions and millions of people, just so they can pursue their goal of this economic shift. The fact is, they believe perpetuating war, creating a food crisis, creating an energy crisis. Yes, they believe it's worth it. They believe that all that suffering is worth it for their great reset. And at the same time, they are gaslighting the world with ridiculous platitudes like this from Nancy Pelosi.
And we saved the planet. We're saving the planet with record $360 billion to save the planet and generating jobs and cleaner air and cleaner water and jobs and security for our country.
Ah yes, they saved the planet by printing massive amounts of money. In reality, it is all a lie. Their interest doesn't seem to be in saving the planet, but rather solidifying their political control in the face of rising political tension, rising populist movements, and in the face of their lies being exposed day in and day out. On the global scale, it's about creating a technocratic global framework, with all economic activity monitored, tracked, taxed, and collected, which brings us to our next segment. Here's a clip from the World Government Summit in 2022.
What underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71, and so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights. But what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well. And the question is, will that new system of digital money and digital accounting accommodate the competing needs of the citizens of all these locations so that every human being has a chance to have a better life? Because that's the only measure of whether a world order really serves.
So they are talking about a perfect record of every transaction on Earth. Again, I know we talk about this quite a bit, but the programmable money aspect is the real kicker. Governments will have the ability to dictate when, how, and what you purchase. Political dissent, they turn you off. Use too much carbon, they turn you off. For any reason, they turn you off. And I find it laughable that she mentions the need for a constitution of digital rights. They will strip you of all of your rights. At the core of this movement, you have zero privacy. You have zero ability to live free of their system. You are to be tracked, cataloged, and sold off to various corporations. Manufactured happiness, artificial experiences, and synthetic relationships. You have no rights in a world like this. However, that much surveillance power also brings in the increased possibility of subjective prosecution, which we are starting to see now. This has all the signs of a rogue system in the making, an authoritarian police state with rampant human rights violations, due to the massive surveillance state, and just how many people are going to be caught in this wide net. We need to maintain some kind of check on this power. If you run afoul of the establishment, they will scour through every single transaction you have ever made. And then, of course, they will run that information through the massive database of tax law. Trust me, if they want to get you on something, they will get you on something. They do this now, but you get my point. However, we got some new information about the Federal Reserve and their CBDC. They say, and I quote, "The new US CBDC will not be anonymous." And of course, we knew that, but we are getting a little more information day after day. Now, it is going to be interesting to see what they do about the crypto market because they are not fans. ECB Chief Lagarde says she does not like to see a new period of free banking due to cryptocurrencies. She says, and I quote again, "Central bank digital currencies are required to maintain the role of the central bank." No, I mean, look, the same people who are in charge of the old system are going to be in charge of the new system. And you expect it to be on the up and up? I don't think so. I definitely have my doubts. The whole point of crypto was to disrupt the financial establishment and their stranglehold over the finances of the masses. It was supposed to challenge their hierarchy, establish a new mode of currency, allow for the average consumer to prosper, to stop the grubby hands of big government and the federal banking system from choking you out. Just keep in mind, this new system that is being proposed, well, it goes against every single thing that crypto was supposed to represent. It goes against everything that crypto was meant to offer the world. It was supposed to be a way out, not a Trojan horse for another round of economic enslavement. But okay. To finish up, we have just a few interesting clips to look at. To start, here's a clip from a channel regular, Yuval Harari.
The new thing is that there is a kind of alien presence on Earth. a new alien intelligence has invaded our life, not from a distant planet, but from the laboratories, artificial intelligence. And this is something new, it's a game changer, because unlike all previous information technology, it can make decisions on its own, it can analyze us, it can hack us. The printing press couldn't do it, the radio couldn't do it, but the new technology can do it. And for the first time in history, it is becoming possible to hack human beings and therefore also to manipulate human beings on an unprecedented scale. And we don't know how to deal with it. We really have no traditions about how to deal with it because it never existed before in history.
I mean, yeah, we don't really know what to expect. And the thing is, the ones pushing this technological shift, this transhuman future, this AI surveilled world, they don't understand it either. When anyone has their eyes set on controlling the world, bad shit happens. They want to control your movement, when and how you can travel. They want to monitor every transaction you make, dictate your purchases. They basically already dictate what media you can consume, or at the very least, they have a large say in it. They control the newsrooms, the big tech platforms. They want to control and dictate what you can eat, what profession you can have. They want to dictate what you can say, what words you can publish. They want to control your entire existence. They believe that their worldview is correct and that anyone who disagrees deserves to be ostracized, criticized, and persecuted. They call for violence to push it forward. They call for revolution instead of revelation. Yes, they even cheer for ignorance rather than intellectual curiosity. They damage art for the sake of message, and they form ideological enclaves devoid of dissent, formulating a monolithic thought process. And they hope to influence the minds of the young. They want to move you from the tangible and real aspects of life to the sordid world of subjective reality and delusion, from the universe to the metaverse. And only bad things will happen with this particular worldview.
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. We want to stop this epidemic. We need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We now see mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin.
Embedded in his hand is a microchip that serves as his keys, his ID, and his wallet.
Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition?
In a matter of seconds, the chip is inserted. The transformation is complete.
When scanned, all of a person's information about their vaccination status is shown on a reader or phone.
Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. Humans are now hackable animals.
You will own nothing, and you will be happy.
You know, the whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
Reject the reset, reject the surveillance state. Stand up for yourself now, or forever hold your peace. Once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. Make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and of course, I do hope you have a good night.